Beneath the endless waves lies a silence older than history itself, a silence that once echoed with the voices of gods and kings. They say the ocean never forgets, that every tide carries whispers of what it once consumed. For over 2,000 years, humanity has searched for a city that may have been the cradle of every civilization, a lost empire, richer than Egypt, wiser than Greece, said to have mastered the power of the earth and the sea before vanishing in a single night of fire and storm. Plato called it Atlantis, a world of gold and marble and ruled by knowledge, not by fear. Its temples glowed beneath the sun, and its people believed themselves divine. But legends say pride became their downfall. The gods turned away, and the ocean rose. Was it just a myth or a memory of something real? Ancient maps show lands that no longer exist. Ruins lie buried beneath the waves, as if time itself had tried to hide them. What if Atlantis was not the first great civilization, but the last echo of one that came before us? What if our history began long after? The world had already ended once before. It was swallowed by the sea, but perhaps it still remembers us. The legend of Atlantis does not come from forgotten scrolls, nor from ancient sailor who claimed to have seen it. It comes from one man, a philosopher, whose words would echo for millennia, Plato. More than 2,000 years ago, he wrote about a great island that vanished beneath the sea. He told the story not as myth, but as history, passed down from the wise priests of Egypt to his ancestor Solon, and finally to himself. In his dialogues, Timaeus and Critias, Plato described Atlantis in astonishing detail. He said, "It was larger than Libya and Asia combined, a mighty island beyond the pillars of Heracles, the gateway we now call the Strait of Gibraltar. There," he wrote, "a powerful and advanced civilization once thrived. Its people were proud, intelligent, and ambitious. They built vast temples of gold and marble, bridges that spanned over the sea channels, and palaces surrounded by walls of orichalcum, a mysterious metal said to shine brighter than fire. The city itself was unlike any other in the world. Its heart was circular, a perfect design of land and water, 3 rings of sea and 3 rings of land, connected by bridges and gates. In the center stood a temple to Poseidon, the god who, according to legend, created the island. Inside the temple, a massive golden statue showed the god riding a chariot drawn by 6 winged horses, surrounded by dolphins and light. The Atlanteans," Plato wrote, "were children of gods and mortals. They inherited both wisdom and desire. They built a mighty empire, ruling over lands across the ocean, their fleets reaching Egypt, Greece, and beyond. But with time, their hearts grew restless. They sought more power, more wealth, until, as Plato said, the divine part within them began to fade. He wrote that the gods saw their arrogance, their hunger to dominate the world, and decided that the time of Atlantis had come to an end. In a single night and day of misfortune, earthquakes shook the land, fires consumed the cities, and the ocean swallowed everything. The island of Atlantis disappeared into the sea, and the waters became impassable, filled with mud and broken stone. To Plato, the story was a warning, a reminder that human greatness and without humility leads to destruction. A message that the higher we rise, the deeper we may fall. For centuries, scholars debated his words. Was it a moral tale, a symbol of the fall of nations, or the echo of a memory so ancient it survived only in myth? Critics say
Plato invented Atlantis as a metaphor for human pride, but others believe no metaphor could carry such precision. He described mountains to the north, fertile plains to the south, canals that brought water from
distant peaks, and temples that shimmered in sunlight. Even the dimensions he gave were exact. The island, he said, was ruled by 10 kings, each descended from Poseidon himself. They governed with wisdom and strength until greed divided them, and the harmony of Atlantis was broken. If Plato's story was pure invention, why did he root it so deeply in geography, lineage, and history? Why did he insist that the tale came from Egypt, a land known for preserving the memory of worlds long vanished? Perhaps he recorded what he believed to be true, or perhaps he only wrote what fragments of memory remained. Either way, his words would ignite the imagination of humanity for more than 2,000 years. Atlantis became a mirror reflecting both our greatness and our fragility, a symbol of what we long for and what we fear to become again. Because if Plato was right, Atlantis was not a dream, but a warning carved into the tides of time. If Atlantis truly existed, then somewhere its bones must still lie hidden beneath the silence of the sea. For centuries, explorers, scholars, and dreamers have searched for its remains. Each believed they stood on the edge of revelation. In the 19th century, Ignatius Donnelly, an American congressman and writer, published a book that changed everything. He claimed that all the world's ancient civilizations were descendants of Atlantis. The Egyptians, the Mayans, the Greeks all carried fragments of a forgotten empire. His ideas spread like wildfire, and for the first time, Atlantis was treated not as legend, but as lost history. Since then, hundreds of theories have been born. Some said the island lay beneath the sands of the Sahara, its ruins buried by time and wind. Others pointed to the Azores, where volcanic peaks rise from the Atlantic, like the tips of a sunken continent. In 1969, explorers discovered strange stone structures off the coast of the Bahamas near the island of Bimini. Long rectangular blocks arranged in lines as if once part of a great road. To many, this became the Bimini Road, proof that Atlantis was real. Scientists, of course, argued otherwise, saying it was a natural formation of limestone. But even now, divers who swim there speak of perfect angles and carved edges that seem too precise for nature alone. Far to the east, near Japan, another discovery stirred the imagination. In 1987, divers near Yonaguni Island found a massive underwater structure, terraces, steps, and walls, as if an ancient city had been carved directly into the rock. Some saw temples and pyramids. Others claimed to see faces of forgotten gods. Once again, the scientific world was divided. Was it geology or memory? And yet, the deeper the ocean is explored, the more it reveals patterns, geometry, ruins in places that should have been untouched by man. Ancient maps also tell a story, one that refuses to fade. The famous Peary Race map, drawn in 1513, shows the outline of South America, and something far stranger, a landmass resembling Antarctica without its ice. Modern science tells us that Antarctica has been frozen for millions of years, yet this map, drawn from sources older than known history, depicts its coastline with surprising accuracy. Where did that knowledge come from? Could it have been inherited from a civilization that once charted the world long before ours began? Even Plato's description seems to align with geological evidence. He spoke of a land destroyed by water and fire in a time when the earth itself was unstable. Around 12,000 years ago, at the end of the last ice age, Sea levels rose dramatically as glaciers melted and oceans expanded. Scientists now confirm that entire coastlines vanished, and with them, any trace of early civilizations. Cities could have been swallowed whole, leaving nothing but silence. Every new discovery, every anomaly beneath the waves keeps the question alive. Maybe Atlantis was never one place, but many. Maybe its memory lives scattered across the globe, in temples, myths, and ruins, each one a fragment of something far greater. And if that's true, then the story of Atlantis is not just about the past. It's about us, about the civilizations we've lost, and the ones we might still lose again. Every legend endures because somewhere within it lies a fragment of truth. Atlantis is no exception. For more than 2 millennia, countless minds have tried to explain what Plato might have meant when he described a powerful civilization swallowed by the sea. Some seek science, others see spirit, and between them lies a mystery that refuses to die. One theory begins not with gods, but with the earth itself. 12,000 years ago, the planet was changing. The last ice age was ending. Vast glaciers melted, releasing unimaginable floods, and sea levels began to rise across the world. Geologists call this period the Younger Dryas. It marked a time of chaos, shifting climates, violent storms, and earthquakes that reshaped continents and erased coastlines. Entire regions vanished beneath the ocean. Land bridges connecting Asia and Europe were drowned. Islands became mountains. Cities, if they existed then, would have disappeared without a trace. Could Atlantis have been one of them? A real island destroyed by a natural cataclysm that lived on only in human memory? To many scientists, this seems plausible. They see in Plato's words, not myth, but oral history, a record of an ancient disaster that our ancestors could never forget. In this view, Atlantis was not a supernatural empire, but one of many advanced coastal societies that perished when the seas rose. Its story survived through survivors, people who fled across the world, bringing fragments of their knowledge and the haunting memory of their lost home. But others believe the truth runs deeper. If the survivors of Atlantis spread across the earth, then their legacy should be visible in the sudden rise of civilizations that followed. And indeed, it is. Around the same period after the floods, great cultures emerged almost simultaneously in Mesopotamia, Egypt, and the Indus Valley. They built cities aligned with the stars, developed mathematics, architecture, writing, and the worship of gods who came from the sea. Could this be coincidence or the faint echo of a single source, a civilization older than them all? Ancient Egypt holds a particularly striking parallel. Its priests told Solon that the Greeks were but children, unaware of the catastrophes that had erased older worlds. They spoke of a sacred island beyond the Western Sea that vanished when fire and water rose together. The pyramids of Giza and the temples of Luxor bear symbols strikingly similar to those found in Mesoamerica. Across the ocean, the Maya and Aztecs built pyramids too. Their myths also speak of floods, golden cities, and gods who descended from the sky. Different continents, same story. It is as if every civilization remembers a world before this some world. Another theory goes further still. It claims that Atlantis was not merely a place, but the center of a forgotten network of energy. Throughout the globe, ancient sites align with mathematical precision. Stonehenge, Giza, Machu Picchu, Easter Island, and even undersea ruins near Japan. When connected on a world map, they form geometric patterns as if someone or something once mapped the planet with a purpose. Some researchers call these the Earth grids, vast energy lines, where ancient builders constructed temples and monuments to harness the natural resonance of the earth. Plato described Atlantis as the meeting point of heaven and earth, a place where divine and human forces intertwined. Could he have been describing an ancient center of energy and knowledge, now lost beneath the sea? Those who follow this path see Atlantis not as a city, but as a frequency, a vibration that once sustained harmony between man and nature. When greed and imbalance grew, that resonance was broken, and the world descended into chaos. In their view, the flood that destroyed Atlantis was not merely water, but a collapse of the Earth's equilibrium, a resetting of the planet's energy. Then, there are those who look inward. They say, Atlantis is not somewhere on the map. It exists within us. Carl Jung, the great psychologist, believed that myths are not stories of the past, but mirrors of the collective human psyche. Atlantis, he said, might symbolize the eternal rise and fall of human consciousness. It is a memory of a golden age, a time when humanity lived in harmony, before pride and desire shattered that unity. Every civilization, from Babylon to Rome, has repeated the same cycle: creation, expansion, arrogance, and ruin. Perhaps Atlantis is simply the first echo of that eternal pattern. In this sense, the legend is not about geography, but morality. It is a warning written in myth, reminding us what happens when knowledge outpaces wisdom. Plato himself may have known this. He wrote that the story was not invented but true, yet also served as a lesson, a reflection on justice, hubris, and divine order. And so Atlantis lives on, not beneath the sea, but in our collective memory, a metaphor for everything we build and everything we destroy. Still, the physical mystery remains. Despite centuries of searching, no conclusive proof has ever been found. But every time a diver descends into the depths, every time a satellite maps the ocean floor, we come a little closer to answers. Perhaps we are not meant to find Atlantis as a place. Perhaps we are meant to remember why it was lost. Because the true story of Atlantis is not just about the past. It is about the fragile balance between knowledge and humility, between progress and destruction. And in that sense, the legend continues, not as a memory of what was, but as a prophecy of what might be. Civilizations rise and they fall, always the same pattern: greatness, discovery, power, and then silence. Atlantis may be gone, but its echo has never faded. It reverberates through time in every empire that followed. Each thought it was different. Each believed it had mastered the world, and each forgot what came before. The ancient Egyptians spoke of Zep Tepi, the first time, a golden age when gods walked among men before chaos swept across the earth. The Sumerians told of Eridu, the first city, and a flood that erased the memory of mankind. The Mayans remembered Itzamna, who brought knowledge from across the sea to teach them how to build and write and count the stars. Every culture, every myth remembers the same story in a different tongue. A world destroyed, a lesson forgotten, a warning ignored. If Plato's Atlantis was real, it was only the first chapter in a much longer book. Humanity has always rebuilt itself from the ashes of what it lost. But with every rebirth, we grow more confident, more proud. We build higher towers, dig deeper into the earth, and stretch farther into the heavens, and still, we do not see the reflection staring back at us. The legend of Atlantis is not about marble cities or golden temples. It is about us, our arrogance, our memory, our refusal to learn from what the water tried to wash away. The ocean is a patient historian. It buries, but it never forgets. Beneath its surface lie the remains of stories that we no longer dare to tell. Maybe Atlantis was not a single island, but a memory embedded in our collective soul, a reminder of everything we once were and everything we might become again. Modern science speaks of progress, but progress without wisdom is only speed without direction. We split the atom and call it knowledge. We rewrite life itself and call it evolution. We build machines that think, yet forget how to feel. The Atlanteans, Plato said, had mastered the forces of nature, but not themselves. They reached the peak of knowledge, and in their pride, they triggered their own end. Are we not walking the same path? We live in cities of glass and light, built upon invisible power. We speak across oceans, create artificial minds, and dream of colonizing other worlds. But deep beneath the surface, the same shadow grows. Greed, division, the hunger for control. We may call it progress, but history calls it repetition. Look closely at our world today, and the parallels become undeniable. Rising seas, melting ice, violent storms, nations divided by power and pride. Once again, the balance of nature trembles, and once again, humanity believes itself untouchable. Perhaps that is why the legend of Atlantis still haunts us, because we sense that it was not a story of long ago, but a reflection of what we are becoming. Atlantis is not buried in the ocean. It is resurfacing through us. For centuries, poets and prophets have spoken of the fall of man, not as punishment, but as consequence. What we destroy returns to teach us. What we forget finds a new way to be remembered. Atlantis may have vanished, but the lesson remains carved into time. No civilization is eternal, not even ours. The ocean has swallowed countless empires, and it will do so again. Not out of cruelty, but balance. Because when pride grows louder than wisdom, the sea always finds its voice. Perhaps that is the true power of this legend. It is not just history or myth, it is prophecy. The mirror that waits for every civilization that dares to see itself clearly. Atlantis whispers, not from the deep, but from within. And maybe, just maybe, the question we should be asking is not, where was Atlantis? But when will we become it again? The deeper we descend, the quieter the world becomes. Light fades, sound disappears, and the ocean swallows every trace of what once was. Yet in that silence, there is memory. Every current, every grain of sand carries the echoes of a world long gone. Perhaps this is where history truly sleeps, not in books, not in ruins, but in the dark places, where time itself stands still. As the camera of our imagination sinks below the waves, we pass through centuries layered like sediment, fragments of marble, a broken statue, a rusted crown, each relic, another whisper of a civilization that believed it would last forever. The water has no mercy, but it has perfect memory. It keeps what we forget. It preserves what we destroy. And somewhere in the depths, Atlantis waits, not as a city of stone, but as an idea suspended between myth and truth. When Plato wrote of its fall, he did not only describe destruction, he described transformation. He wrote that after the island sank, the sea became impassable, choked with mud. A strange sentence, unless you read it not as geology, but as symbol. The mud is the barrier between what we were and what we can no longer reach, between knowledge and forgetting, between truth and myth. Every generation tries to cross that barrier. We dig, we dive, we search, but the ocean always closes again because some lessons are not meant to be recovered. They are meant to be remembered. Imagine if the story of Atlantis was never about a place. What if it was about the soul of humanity itself? The city that drowns each time we lose our balance, each time we choose pride over harmony, power over peace. Atlantis is every empire that ever fell, every city swallowed by war, every culture erased by its own hand. It is Rome, Babylon, Alexandria, and maybe someday us. Look around our world today, the same signs are written again. We rise higher than ever, but our foundations are fragile. We control the atom, but not our anger. We connect billions, yet drift further apart. We expand outward while collapsing within. And beneath all of it, the earth moves, as if remembering. The seas are rising once more. Ice is melting. Storms grow stronger each year. The same cycle that may have ended the world before is beginning again. The myth of Atlantis is not about catastrophe. It is about balance. The moment when creation and destruction become the same act. When humanity pushes too far, nature simply exhales. Some call it punishment. But the ocean does not punish. It restores. It is the world's oldest memory, and it remembers everything. If you listen closely, beneath the sound of the waves, there is a heartbeat. Not of a drowned city and never show, but of an eternal rhythm. Rise and fall, light and shadow, life and silence. This is the pulse of existence. The same heartbeat that built pyramids, raised temples, and whispered through the minds of prophets. It beats in us now, as it did in them. Maybe that is why we keep searching for Atlantis, because we sense that in finding it, we might find ourselves. Every dive into the deep is a journey inward. Every ruin we uncover is a reflection of what we once were. The further we search beneath the sea, the closer we come to the truth, that what we seek has always been here, in our hands, in our hearts. Plato wrote that the Atlanteans forgot their divine nature. They became obsessed with power and turned away from the light. And so, the gods withdrew, and the sea reclaimed what man had taken. But perhaps the divine never left. Perhaps it only waited for us to remember. If so, then Atlantis was not destroyed. It transformed. Its knowledge became our intuition. Its cities became our dreams. Its fall became our beginning. As we rise again as a species, we must ask ourselves, what do we wish to build this time? A new Atlantis, founded on wisdom, or another empire destined to drown? The choice has always been ours, and the ocean will always be there to bear witness. When you stand on the shore and watch the horizon blur into the sky, you are standing on the edge of two worlds, the one that was and the one that could be. Somewhere beyond that line, in the silence beneath the waves, the memory of Atlantis still waits, not as a ruin, but as a mirror. Because in the end, Atlantis never died. It became us. In every age, humanity builds monuments to its greatness and then forgets why it built them. The story of Atlantis reminds us that knowledge without humility becomes destruction, and that every empire eventually returns to the sea. But perhaps the fall is not the end. Perhaps it is renewal, the ocean's way of teaching us balance once more. If Atlantis truly existed, its stones are long gone, yet its spirit endures in the curiosity that drives us to explore and the hope that we can learn from what was lost. Every civilization believes it will last forever, and everyone leaves behind a whisper. When the waves finally rise again, they will not erase us. They will carry our story forward to whoever comes next, because the memory of Atlantis is not buried beneath the sea. It flows through us, and as long as we remember, it will never truly be lost.